Welcome. I'm Michael Tomano, host of How to Be a Superhero, the show, and I'm also author of How to Be a Superhero, the book. And today I'm super excited to have my guest today, Jeff Rose. He's an awesome human being, and I'm super excited to chat with him. And so, Jeff, so glad to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And so, would you like to give us a little brief history of you?
A brief history of me. Yeah, sure. I was born in California. I grew up in New England. I've been living in Gainesville, Florida for the last 10 years with my lovely wife and now a baby boy who is, I think 16 weeks today. Exciting. And Yeah, I have been working in sales for the better part of my professional career. I work for a local digital marketing software company here in Gainesville. I also am the commissioner of our local Ultimate Frisbee League, which is certainly my labor of love and one of my favorite hobbies, and also happens to be good exercise too, so that never hurts. That's the 30-second Jeff Rose background. Let me know if you want to dig deeper.
Wow, that was fantastic. I'm really impressed with your ability to keep it so concise.
Yeah, I can say more, but I'm trying to
Well,
that's the vignette, as it were.
we will definitely be diving deeper because I want to get into your superpowers. And so the superpower that I'm most excited to talk to you about, well, actually, I'm excited to talk to you about all of them. But the one thing that I've really been excited to hear a lot about is, I think you definitely have the ability of leadership. And especially from what I've seen that you've had with the Ultimate League, because I'm sure even before everything with COVID, it was pretty tough to be a leader of, a huge league because you're organizing a lot of people. And then like once COVID hit, you had a lot of decisions and work to do. And so I'm really excited to hear about what it's like to be a leader of an organization like Ultimate.
Yeah, it is challenging, but it's something I am super passionate about. It's kind of interesting because I think I'm a little different than the average sort of Ultimate person. I kind of call myself a fanboy more than anything else. I played Ultimate Frisbee in a very unorganized capacity when I was in high school. I played very minimally in college. I was too busy partying in college to put a lot of effort into Ultimate Frisbee. But when I moved to Gainesville, it was because my wife was going to do a master's at University of Florida. I was working remote for the company I was with at the time, and I didn't really know people. So actually, when we first moved here, which was now 9 years ago, wow, 9 years ago, I was playing a lot of golf by myself, and I'm not a very good golfer. I started when I moved here, but I met a guy on the golf course who told me he played in this Ultimate League here in Gainesville, and I was like, oh, I've always really liked Ultimate Frisbee, I could throw a disc pretty far. Cool. Like, I've always wanted to get more into it, never have. And I instantly fell in love with the sport, with the community here. It was amazing. And some of my best friends now in Gainesville, I met through this community. And as I spent more time in it, there was a brief hiatus. I tore my ACL in like the first year I started playing. So I took a year off and then came back. I realized I wanted to get more involved, and the current leadership let me captain a team, and that was great. We didn't necessarily win all that much, but the team always had a great time and wanted to kind of play with me again, and that was awesome. And I think that's kind of the beauty of Ultimate. There's kind of these varying degrees. There are obviously people in our league who are phenomenal players and play at the highest level, some of them at a pro level. There's also brand new people that come into our league to learn to love the game. And I really wanted to focus on, because I'm never going to go to nationals or anything like that, but I wanted to focus on building a community that would build the love for the sport and continue to bring people in and grow it, and kind of grab the expertise of these amazing players. Gainesville has an incredible amount of talent here in the Ultimate sphere. and have those people come in and, help people who've never played it before fall in love with the game the way that I did. And yeah, it just sort of happened naturally. I kind of fell into taking over kind of the main management of it. And obviously have a ton of help. I could not do this by myself. There are some amazing people that support. And again, for most of us, it's a labor of love. The way League is set up, it's it's a business, but it is run like a nonprofit. All proceeds go back into improving the business with equipment and prizes and fun and parties and all that. And that's what I love about it. It's just it's a good excuse for people to get together and have fun and maybe get some exercise and like foster love of a sport that I think is a little overlooked. But ideally we grow interest in it to the point where kids are playing this in high school and going off to play it in college. And I'm really hoping it's in the Olympics next time around. I think they just missed the cut this last time for the Summer Olympics, but I mean, it's fun to play. It's fun to watch. It's got a great background in being spirit driven. The whole idea of ultimate, it's a self-officiated sport, so spirit of the game is central to the game. So it's got a really good heart, and it's just wicked fun to play. So yeah, I decided I wanted to be helping, make it successful or continue to be successful here in Gainesville, and it's been fun. It's been great. So I'm thrilled and honored to be a part of it.
I think you've done a really good job too of building the community, because I've personally found that the ultimate community has been super friendly, and that's one of the reasons why I've been excited to step up for this season, into more roles, because I had such a good experience last season, and because ultimate is kind of new for me, just within like the last few years, because as you mentioned, I think it is a rather unknown sport, and I really like playing football, and football is the main sport that I've played. And for whatever reason, it's been hard to find people to play football in Gainesville. And but I've always found people out there playing ultimate frisbee. And so I'm like, I just decided one day, why don't I just give this a shot? And now I absolutely love it.
Nice.
And yeah. And so I think the fact that you've been able to help create such a warm community, I think is fantastic.
I appreciate that. I'm a former football player too. I played in high school, not in any sort of college capacity or anything like that. But it's great for a lot of reasons. I mean, I think from how easy it is to kind of play it. You just need some cones, and if you don't have cones, you can use whatever you have lying around, and then you need a frisbee and cleats if you're playing at that level. But it's pretty easy to throw a game together. I think it's a good game for folks who haven't even played sports, but also folks that have played other sports. They can often find that they can excel in it. It's, I don't know, I've always liked the vibe of it more than anything else. It's like anything else. It's sometimes things get competitive and heated, and you'll see folks who don't want to lose, and it has its heartbreak moments. It has its the championship moments where you're excelling, but I mean, overwhelmingly so. It's just a blast. The people that are involved in it are amazing people. So I find it quite inspiring.
It's a great fun way to get exercise. And one thing that I really appreciate is that I'm not sure if this is a recent change that you've done, but having the regular season not really count for anything. Because for me, when I started playing League, I was playing with all these people that have been playing for 15 sometimes plus years,
Right.
that are super skilled and super serious. And it was my first season in the League. I'm like, I don't want to mess up for the team. I don't want to screw things up. And so being able to know that I can get in there and it won't be the end of the world if I make a mistake, but then also have the playoffs where it's a chance to be more serious. Like I really love that there's that there's that contrast.
Yeah, and we're always kind of trying to walk that razor's edge, right? Because we want the game to be competitive, certainly, and for some of the players who are superstars at it, they're there to try and drive the level of the game up. But we're also really trying to build the community and get as many people into it as we can. And I remember struggling with that when I first started playing. I was just terrified of making a mistake and feeling like, oh, I'm gonna have to sit on the bench if I screw this point up. And we go back and forth on it. We've actually talked about having different seasons, have different kind of setups. So one, yes, the regular season is not, it doesn't matter. So nobody has to worry. And, we're not going to worry about the impact of that. So everybody gets equal playing time, and there's less stress, there's less pressure, there's less at stake, I guess. Although I would say at the end of the day, it's a league, it's a city league. There's not a ton at stake. But pride is a thing, right? And people like to win. But I think our long-term goal, outside of some lofty goals of trying to do youth development community and get more young people involved at like a high school or at a younger level. I think we'd love to get to the point where we are having different skill levels. And I know some friends who have moved here from Gainesville, moved to Gainesville from elsewhere, who were in other communities where there was the amateur and the pro league, right? You'd have both of those things. So would love to be able to cater to kind of different levels of ability and knowledge. Right now we're all one big happy family and kind of have to figure it out with the whole hodgepodge. Another challenge of Gainesville is it's sort of a transient community, right? Because you are working with a lot of student population and things like that. But I think with the right people involved, with the right effort, with the right kind of setup, you can attract a big population and grow it to the point where I'm hoping it's 500 or 1,000 people someday. But yeah, it's fun that way. I think that was a really good move by leadership, and those kind of decisions weren't made just by me, for the record. I have a great group of people that inform those decisions. And one of the constant things we're trying to figure out is how can we get more people to play and help them, enjoy it and get enough play time without being stressed out that they're bringing the team down because they've never, thrown a flick throw before or things like that. And that was sort of our answer this year. But we're always experimenting and doing different things like that to try and see how we can keep as many people happy as possible. So that's sort of the end goal, right?
I think you brought up a very, very important point when it comes to leadership, and that is that you don't depend just on yourself for the answers. That you really take feedback from a lot of different people, and that you've even set up your committee to help you make informed decisions. Because I think a lot of people just try to kind of make the decisions by themselves, and the fact that you're able to take feedback is such a huge deal.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd be without the other folks that have stepped up to the plate here. Go back to what I said formerly. I'm kind of more of a fanboy than a elite frisbee player. So I've some of the folks that play in league and have been playing in league for 10 plus years in some cases. They've forgotten more about Ultimate than I'll ever know. And so it is super important to me, just from a practicality standpoint, to have people that really know a lot about the game, even at its highest level. But also I think it's, kind of important to surround yourself with people who don't necessarily always agree with you and can offer various different points of input, because I think, I may have made missteps in the past where I was totally focused on the new players, and you can't just prioritize one segment of your community, right? So that's what I was sort of speaking to earlier is, we're testing things, we're trying new things, we are trying to grow it so we can cater to a very very competitive, very high level of ultimate right now, also have a level of ultimate that is super welcoming and makes people excited to come back and learn more and keep growing with the sport. And the folks, the volunteers and folks that captain every year, that have chosen to be on the board and invest their time and their heart, their emotions into this, are absolutely essential to the success of it. And I think it's great when people don't always agree too, because I think it's really important to get various different perspectives. The real secret sauce is coming to some kind of agreement, or consensus as far as what's the best thing for the league this season, this year, 5 years out. And I think one sort of thing that we're starting to think more in terms of is a long-term plan. What can we do if we can get enough good humans involved in this community, in this league? What else could we do? Could we have bring the high school kids out at 2 or 3 times a week to learn to play, and like develop teams at the various different high schools and even middle schools in the area, and provide a really fun, really cool place where they could spend their time and learn about a sport that you don't see a lot of ultimate, and well, you certainly didn't when I was back in high school. I think maybe it's grown a bit since then, but you don't see a lot of ultimate played in high schools and things like that. So there are some pockets of that now in the country. I think Minnesota's got some amazing teams and programs, and certainly like there's the Triangle and the Carolinas in that area, and it is growing. It's been cool to watch it evolve over the year. I'm just hoping we can be a part of that process and help it continue to grow and become popular across the world.
I want to mention that, I think it really is an important superpower to be able to listen to opposing views and be able to listen to people in general, because I find that, my motto is that constructive criticism is more valuable than gold, because it helps you earn more gold. And just being able to listen and hear those opposing viewpoints, but also, letting the people know that you're receptive to those opposing viewpoints is a big deal, because a lot of people don't really want to hear, that what they don't agree with. They're really oftentimes more want to hear what they do agree with. So being able to be receptive to that, and let people know that you're receptive to that, I think is a really big deal and really important for people.
Yeah, I really agree. I don't know that there's necessarily enough of that in our modern day too. I think it's okay for people to disagree and have differing viewpoints. I think it's what's more important is like, how do you come together after a disagreement and still kind of move the ball forward on what's important to you? Because at the end of the day, anybody that's involved in this league loves ultimate frisbee. So you might disagree on how we get to our goal, but the goal is always going to be, how do we get more people playing? How do we get more people involved? How do we have a positive impact on the community? How do we improve the league? That's not always going to be a straight line, and people are going to have different ideas about it. But it's sort of inspiring. I think it's especially inspirational when you have people who have different opinions about things that come together and still accomplish some sort of unifying goal. And that's been cool to see. It's sort of evolved over the years.
And it helps you see angles that you might not have considered before, or you like really been able to see.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite sayings is, it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. And I think some people get very stuck in their own subjective experience, and often make the misstep that they think that their experience is universal, and that's how everybody else experiences the world. That's how everybody else thinks about the world. But nothing could be further from the truth. We are all very unique people with our own individual personalities and predilections and predispositions and those types of things. And this is going to sound a bit grandiose, but what has been responsible for most of the advancements of mankind has been collaboration and collective effort. And certainly those people all didn't agree on everything that they were working towards what now is our modern day society. So I think it's as an important message, like what makes us different and where we disagree is less important than where we can find common ground and try and improve things and sort of move towards some kind of greater good. And again, this all sounds very grandiose in the scheme of ultimate, but there's lessons to be learned there, right? You can have differing opinions with people and still care about the same thing and want it to be better, and you can work together to achieve that. So
Yeah, and well, it just makes things so much better for everyone when you're able to see multiple viewpoints and take in all that additional information.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a much clearer picture understanding of a situation or some kind of mission if you're including viewpoints that are different than your own. So yeah,
I really love too that you're reaching out to the youth, because when I was a kid, I was not aware of ultimate at all. I'm not even sure how much of a thing it was. It probably was a thing, but it was never even mentioned. And I think it's such a great sport for people to get into, because I think sports are so important for people to get into, period, because there's so many benefits, because we already talked about community. You're getting a workout. It's fun. There's so many advantages, and it's such an accessible sport, because really all you need is a frisbee, and you can get going.
Yeah. No, I wish I mean, there was certainly ultimate in college where I went, but that's a different priorities back then, which I sort of regret now in retrospect. But I played, like I said, very unorganized ultimate in high school, but I think it has been around for decades. I think it goes back. I actually should know this, but I remember people joking about it being a hippie sport, and I think it goes back to the '60s, if not farther. I think Bill Nye actually played. So, but yeah, there's, it's just, yeah, I wish more people knew about it because, well, I mean, personally, I'm biased. I love it. I think it's amazing, but I do think you'd find more people that would absolutely fall in love with the sport if they had access to it and were aware of it. And that's a big reason why we're doing what we're doing. And for the record, the sort of youth development program has been a work in progress, because all of us that are involved are really kind of volunteering our time, and we've got some really good people in place who are now making connections with high schools and things like that, trying to set up teams. And I think if leagues financials continue to look good, we're very, very much interested in donating to developing programs at places and things like that. I think that would be a really good use of any sort of excess funds that we have. We try to keep it pretty affordable too, just so it's accessible to everyone. But certainly, with if it is performing well and the financials look good, the whole idea is, it's not supposed to be putting money in anybody's pocket. It's supposed to be developing the game here in Gainesville, and we've got some cool people involved who are looking into how we can scale up something that would bring youth and get them involved and get them loving the game too. So yeah,
I love that. And one of the things that I've actually found so fun about frisbee is, so I think I mentioned to you that me and some friends throw the frisbee around at the One Love Cafe. They have a little park that's next to it, and a lot of times little kids want to join us, and or sometimes we'll see little kids that are watching us, and so we know that they want to join us, but maybe they're a little bit afraid, and a lot of times they'll be like, well, I don't know how to throw a frisbee, or I'm not very good, and we'll just give them a little tip on how to throw it, and they throw a lot of times they throw it better than me,
yeah,
right out of the gate, which I'm like, it's I'm excited for them, that I'm like, oh man, I wish I could throw that well. And
best time to learn things like that is when you're that age, right? Yeah, I think my first experience like actually throwing an ultimate disc was at like my parents' barbecue when I was a kid. And I would like, I've always thrown. I've always like hung out with friends at like picnics and barbecues and tossed the disc. And then, I again played unorganized ultimate in high school. I did not really grasp how like serious and coordinated of a game it could become until I moved here. And yeah, I kind of love that it operates on all of those levels too, though. You could be, 10 people running around barefoot playing a little casual game in someone's backyard, or you could be, I don't know, the team of 6'7" dudes that are out there, crushing it for the Cannons or Atlanta Hustle or Soul or those kinds of teams. And Ultimate played at the highest level is, I think, art. It is really cool to watch, and really amazing athleticism. But yeah, it's a great sport. I mean, I think like any other sport, if you're really passionate about it, it almost becomes a form of meditation. It's something you can lose yourself in. And that's what I've always loved about it. Like, it doesn't feel like exercise to me, but I rarely achieved like the level of soreness or the level of workout I do when I play an ultimate game doing anything else. I played soccer when I was a kid. I played lacrosse. I played football. Those were physically taxing, but I actually think ultimate is even more so.
There's a lot of running in ultimate.
Yeah, a lot of running, a lot of jumping, a lot of changing direction. Yeah, it's great. I hope to play it into my elder years.
With the little kids, like once they see they can throw the frisbee, and actually a lot of times adults too, they get so excited about it, and they go from that timid, shy to just like wanting to play like all night long. And I just think that's so great to see. And a
Yeah,
lot of times like the kids are really young too. I mean, I think we had a girl that joined us that was maybe like 4 the other day, and she was throwing. And of course, I mean, we're not talking about like throwing hucks like down the field, but
sure.
but it doesn't take that, just teach them how to do the gator chomp to catch, and for throwing, I just have them throw it like a ninja star. And like when they see that they can actually make it work, I mean, they just get so excited, and it's just so fun.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is cool. That sort of, and I've seen that many a time, right? Even when we're like sometimes before league, we'll be hanging out and throwing, and there'll be little kids on the sideline, or even watching the football game. You'll see some of those kids kind of come over when they're playing whatever the youth football is called, like Pee Wee, or I forget what it's, Pop Warner. And a couple of times kids are like, "Can I try and throw that?" They'll like grab it, and they'll throw it right in the ground, and you just kind of go, "Hey, no, like it's weird, but you gotta you ever skipped a rock or like whipped a towel, think that." And same experience you're talking about. I've seen like a 4 or a 5-year-old all of a sudden just click, and it's like, that's cool. Like I remember feeling like that, because I don't know. I also think frisbees are cool. Like it's cool how they fly, and it's cool the kind of control that you have. There's no other, kind of a ball or like sport item that behaves really the same way as a frisbee. It's kind of cool when it's all angles and spins and power and all these interesting things that really affect how it flies and floats and all those things. It's yeah, I love it.
I think so. I just realized too that I think it's actually like a really big self-confidence booster too when the kids realize that they can throw a frisbee. And so that's one of the key components of my book is that we all have real life superpowers. And because I think it's so important for people to realize that they do have things that they're good at. And
Yeah.
so like when they realize that they can actually throw a frisbee and make it go through the air, I think it's like really tapping into like a real core important part.
Yeah, I always say it's like airbending, so it kind of makes me think of it like that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's cool when you can sort of empower someone to see that they could do something they might not have thought they could do before. And it doesn't have to just be frisbee; that could be anything. But in our context, that's I would say some of the things that I find really rewarding about it is watching people grow and excel and realize they're really good. And I've been involved in this league long enough now that I've actually seen like, normally it's like 14-year-olds are kind of the youngest that will come in and play in our league just because of the vast majority are adults, right? But I've seen a few kids come in at 14 and they were pretty good, and now they're like playing pro, and it's just amazing. Like, here we are, what, 4 or 5 years later, and these were the kind of neophyte young folks. They were shy, they were and then now they're at the top level of the sport. And that's another cool thing about it, right? Like, you can play it with little kids, you can play it into your elder years, and obviously maybe the competitiveness of it's going to vary across that spectrum, but it really is a game that anyone can learn to play, from like a 5-year-old to a 75-year-old. 75 might be pushing it, but hey, if you can get out there and jog and throw a disc, give it a shot, right?
Well, Vaughn is who organizes Trinity. He's 1 year shy of 70.
Yeah, I hope to be Vaughn someday. That's I have the utmost respect and awe of him. He's a Jedi or an airbender, depending on what fantasy or sci-fi thing you want to allude to. But yeah, that's the really cool thing too. And you can see that in our league. Certainly there are older people who, they might not be able to run as fast as some of the younger guys, but they have amazing throws, and they've got incredible field sense and strategy. And I just kind of love how it can be, it caters to all athletic abilities and sizes, ages, anybody. And it's a sport that can be played co-ed. It's got so much going for it. I absolutely love it.
It's very accessible.
Yeah, that's the right word for it. It's a super accessible sport.
And I really appreciate you having league as well, so that there is like a higher level to play in, because I play a lot of pickup, and it's kind of nice to have something that's also like a little bit more organized and something to work towards. Because like for me, I took football pretty seriously, and actually every sport that I play, I've taken it like pretty seriously, and so I like to like train and try to be at like a higher level. And so having something that's a little bit more serious, with a league, it gives me something to work towards. So it's great that's there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I also kind of consider league to be a little bit. I'm sort of, the step sort of goes like this, right? It's like pick up, league, and then you've got club and college and everything that happens above that. And certainly depending on where you are in the country, there's probably more competitive leagues than others. Like I met some of the folks that have moved here from other places. Their leagues will actually have those delineations of like amateur, pro, high competition. And league has actually had that in the past, as a function of numbers. Like that's sort of the overarching goal. I would love for league to represent a couple of different steps of competitiveness and savvy. But I think it is a nice kind of, I think right now the way that it exists is it's a nice kind of, hey, you play pickup, you know that you like it, at least to a point. Come out here to league. It's a little bit more organized. You've got some really, really talented players on the field that can impart some knowledge and wisdom to you. And I think in a perfect world, that then turns those people into the folks that are playing in college and club. And if the future allows for it, it'd be amazing if league grows to the level where we could actually have that sort of, all right, here's our more kind of recreational, here's our more competitive league. And certainly that would create another step on the ladder, I guess, if you decided that you want to go to the highest possible level you can reach. And again, the athleticism at that level is just, it's astonishing. It's really fun to watch. So
That's really cool. And so I have one more question for you about league, and I'm sure you can probably go I'm sure you probably have a lot to say about this subject. So, um, um, if we could try to summarize it, just because I'm sure there's so much to it, but what has it been like to have dealt with the league and COVID?
Yeah, that has been interesting. I mean, just as far as like what actually happened, in 2019, March 2019 was when we actually called that season off. And I remember thinking back then, like, this is not going to be a big deal, and we'll be back out there playing, and we'll have the finals happen soon. I think my team was doing pretty well that season too, but obviously it didn't get better, and in a lot of ways it still hasn't. And it was tough, but the decision again was made with consensus from leadership. We needed to not have league, and we had basically a full year and then some that we did not play. And then, as kind of as numbers, at least seemingly, infections were down, we decided we were going to come back. I had just welcomed my baby boy into the world, so I actually didn't play in our most recent season, which was the first one since we shut down for COVID. It was this last summer, and we made the decision we were going to move forward with it. Encouraged people to get vaccinated and be safe and take care of that. And I think the season was a good success, although. But I don't necessarily think this was through league, but I know plenty of people that did wind up catching COVID. So that has been a big challenge. It's, how do you obviously want to keep your players safe. You want to keep the community safe, but people want to come back and play, and there's obviously differing opinions on what kind of risk people are willing to tolerate. But one of the important things that we did was kind of get an idea of what percentage of our population was vaccinated. That informed our decision to come back to league and what kind of mitigation efforts we were going to do on the field to prevent transmission. We were like, I think 85 to 90% vaccinated over the summer league. And, during that time, the Delta variant started spreading like crazy. And also there's been, I think, unfortunately, a lot of misinformation distributed that have made people hesitant to get the vaccine. I think that, the writing's on the wall now with what's going on with hospitalizations and whatnot. So most recently, we made the decision to require vaccinations for upcoming league, just for the safety of everybody. And I think that was the right thing to do. That did not mean it was an easy or straightforward decision. And certainly people of differing views. We talked a lot about people having different views and things like that at the beginning of this. I think some of them were upset with that. And, it's just, I think at the end of the day, we have to trust the science and the data, and we have to trust that, there is a right answer to this question as far as, what is safe and what is right and what is for the greater good of, not just our community, but our country and the world right now. And it's to do whatever we can to stop the spread of this thing. I mean, the hospitalizations and things like that it's not just impacting people that catch COVID. It's anybody with a healthcare emergency can now be impacted by this, because there might not be a bed or oxygen for you if you're in a car accident or if you have a heart attack or anything like that. So that has been tough, because I know people, I consider them friends and I respect them, who don't want to get vaccinated. And I would say that's been one of the most challenging things, is kind of dealing with that differing opinion. And I totally understand some people don't want to put something in their body that they don't know anything about. But my feeling is always trust the experts. When there's expert consensus and you have the overwhelming majority of the people who have dedicated their lives to studying something telling you that this is important and it's the only way we're going to stop having our ICU beds full, I think you have to follow it. So that's a very long answer, probably not as concise as you wanted, but I think what we always try to keep as our guiding light during this time is how can we keep our community safe? And I think it's pretty evident that the safest way to do that is to ensure that folks are vaccinated folks are being careful about transmission and things like that. And if you're not willing to do that, that's okay. But I think it just, then you're making a decision that you're saying, I'm, you know, I'm willing to take this risk, and that's fine. That is absolutely anyone's right and decision. But that decision does not just affect the person that does not get vaccinated, because they can catch it and they can give it to someone else, especially with this new variant. The vaccine was never meant to completely inoculate you from catching it. That was actually a misconception that I had that was cleared up for me. It does reduce the chance that you will get it, but its most important function is to prevent you from getting serious symptoms and dying, which it is very, very, very good at. If more people were vaccinated, we probably would have stomped out this. It's a plague a long time ago, and the reason we haven't is because we don't have the level of immunity to prevent it from spreading. On the positive note, I think we are trending in the right direction, and this is in our rear view mirror and a very unhappy memory in the coming months. Yeah, that's been challenging. I will say, in talking with leadership and the people that volunteered their time to make League happen, it was important to them that we made that decision. League doesn't happen without those people's involvement. So that's why we made the decision. But yeah, it's been a challenging time, I will say. I still have yet to play Ultimate. I have not played Ultimate since we shut down in March, and I'm super excited to get back to the field. And yeah, I hope we can keep our community safe.
Well, I really appreciate all the effort that you've put into League, because I'm sure League without dealing with COVID is a lot of work, and then having that on top of it, all the rules and regulations that you had to deal with as well, and that there was lots to sift through, I'm sure. And so the fact that you kept pushing through, I mean, that's really the sign of a real leader. And I definitely think that that's a superpower, and very important to being a superhero is being a leader.
Yeah, it's well, most of the credit goes to Jen Maresca and Jenny Rodriguez for last season. They were the two-headed commissioner monster that made summer happen, because I was mainly focused on the baby. But yeah, I mean, I think all of us really, really care about this community and growing the love of this sport. And we're all just committed to finding a way to make it happen in a way that's safe and, still gets people out there and playing. So yeah, I appreciate that. But all again, I have to say it was very much a team effort. And I was thankfully not leaned on much at all this last year. So I got to focus on my baby boy, which was incredible. And I'm infinitely grateful to those two, and to all the captains and all the volunteers that make it happen. That's what makes this community great. So.
Awesome. Well, massive shout out to the Frisbee community then for helping to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. I named the two that were co-commissioners. There's too many to name that are also volunteering and captaining and supporting. And if I try to name them all, I'm definitely going to forget someone. So I'm going to cop out and say thank you, everybody. Yeah. I don't want to offend anybody by forgetting anybody. So I'm only going to name the co-commissioners of Summer League, because Jenny and Jen or Fresca are just absolute rock stars. It would not have happened without them, and it would not have happened without all the captains and volunteers and support behind them. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. So I think we touched on some really important superpowers, like with leadership, being able to be open-minded and take criticism from other perspectives. I think that's all really important stuff, the importance of sports. And so I want to get into a little bit, and this might have to be for a part two, but another thing that I'm super excited to talk to you about, as a fellow writer, is I think it's interesting that you said that you're in sales, because your newsletters are very well written, and I actually wanted to ask you if you were a copywriter, and so I would love to talk to you about the power of writing, because I think one of your superpowers definitely is the ability to write. And so that, and also the power of storytelling in general.
Yeah, oh, that's definitely good fodder for another show. But the quick background on that, I studied creative writing in college and had delusions of grandeur that I was going to write the next big best fantasy novel. I love J.R.R. Tolkien, is like one of my favorite authors of all time. I love fantasy, I love sci-fi. It was interesting that I sort of fell backwards into sales. I originally was a editor at a publishing company in Schenectady, and I produced a small.
Are you serious? That's where I'm from. That's where I was born.
Get out of town. Yeah, so I worked at Benchmark Printing, which is, oh gosh, what's the name of that road? There's a bridge. You go across it, you turn a sharp left, and there's a printing company.
Is that Mohawk Ave?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. So I went to school in Saratoga Springs, New York at Skidmore, and then I got a job in Schenectady after I graduated, and I worked there for several years. And I was a copy editor for the publications. They were doing very dry healthcare publications, but they actually had me produce a small quarterly magazine, so I got to do a bit of writing there. And then as I was working with customers and helping edit their publications and things, the leadership team was like, hey, customers seem to like working with you. You want to go try and get some more? And thus was born my sales career. It's been good. I mean, the only thing I've ever really been good at is talking to people, and I did develop decent written communication skills. So that has served me well in my profession. I still hope to write a great fantasy novel someday. But yeah, I have always been struck by the power of story. I started reading very young and voraciously, and have always been, really amazed by the power of storytelling. And I think that's sort of a universal experience for people. Even if you don't like to read, if you ever tell someone, hey, let me tell you a story, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 people that you say that to, they're going to lean in. And I think we're built for storytelling because, again, this is a bit grandiose, but I think it is very much responsible for humans. I talked a little bit about collective effort. That's certainly responsible for us being able to accomplish the amazing things that we have, but we also don't get there if we don't have a good way to communicate. And our whole communication structure up until the written word was based around storytelling and oral storytelling. And then we started writing things down, and that's how you transmit knowledge from one generation to the next. And we've been building on that ever since to get to what is some pretty amazing technological advancements today. But I think sort of universally humans are primed to love a story because it's how we relate with the world and it's how we communicate. So yeah, that's probably a much bigger conversation, but yeah. I feel like I may have missed the other thing that you were talking about because you got me going on storytelling. Did I miss something else?
Well, just your ability to use words in the newsletters.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess that all comes back to just communication. Although I think there's probably two schools of thought on my newsletters. They used to be very lengthy and rambling, stream of consciousness things. I've trimmed them down a little bit since the baby got here, but still occasionally we'll write things out. But yeah, I don't know. My goal is always to communicate in the most authentic way how grateful and excited I am to be a part of this community. And it means a lot that people trust me to or trust that I'm trying to do the best I can to make this the best possible community it can be. So
yeah, I guess your newsletters are kind of like story-ish too. Like just the way that it flows.
Yeah,
like it has a very good flow.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I've had good sentence structure and conveyance of ideas beaten into me from a young age, from like mentally beaten into me, right? From my school teachers all the way up to, even in sales, it's important that you can communicate in a sequential way that makes sense so people can understand what you're trying to say, understand whatever value you're trying to convey to them, or just keep their attention, right? If you write something in an engaging manner, you're likelier to have someone read it and enjoy it. So that's always my aspiration. I'm sure I missed the mark a fair amount of times, but yeah, I've gotten a few things that have boosted my ego over the years now. People have been like, hey, I love your reviews. I've also had people say, hey, can you tell me like the important stuff of this and get rid of all the fluff? So there's different schools of thought on it, but I've now taken two tactics. I usually try to have like, here's your bulleted action items, and then here's all the other stuff if you want to read what I've written here. I should say that was stolen from the great Mike Greathouse, who was the leader of League before me. He always had a for skimmers section where it would just be like, here's the things you need to know. If you want more editorialization, read below.
Yeah, what do they call that? The too long don't read. I think
Yeah,
that's the
TLDR. Yeah, the good old TLDR for sure.
That's cool. I love that. Well, just for me as I'm more of just a like I would say a lot of times like when I'm writing a newsletter, writing an email, it's kind of more dry-ish. Like it's kind of just not as exciting. So when I read yours, where there's a lot of flavor in it, I was like, wow, like I think he's like really onto something. I think this is great.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm sure some are better than others, but yeah, thank you.
Well, and it's just kind of cool, like seeing like the tie into stories and really like I think you really hit on such an important point about how far back stories go. Because I mean, we can even talk about the paintings on the cave walls. Those were oftentimes stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean those are the original ones, right? That was people preserving
The OG.
knowledge or trying to convey some kind of a some kind of story to the that would last beyond their life, which is arguably the foundation of all human knowledge, is the ability to pass things on after you're gone, right? Which is, it started in storytelling, and I think it's still very much couched in storytelling. So yeah.
Well, we are definitely going to have to do a part two, because I'm sure that is, by far its own show, and because there's so many interesting nuances to it. But so I have two more questions for you, and one is, what do you think my superpowers are?
I would say overwhelmingly what I've always enjoyed and been impressed about by you is you have a very good way of getting people to open up and feel comfortable with you. And I think that is not to be overlooked as a superpower. I think the ability to encourage other people to kind of open their hearts and speak to what's important to them and share is a huge superpower of yours. So that would be one big thing. And then the other is I just think your passion. It's cool to see like how passionate you are about, especially kids. Helping kids find ways to have fun and feel important and included. I think sometimes I think kids aren't taken seriously enough, and I don't know if what I'm trying to say is necessarily coming through, but like kids are often dismissed in ways where they shouldn't be, because they are so crucial to the future, and kids are a lot more insightful and just illuminating to our world experience than I think a lot of people give them credit for, and I think you're very good at seeing that. So yeah, those would be the two main things, I guess.
I completely agree with the like the importance of kids and how illuminating they can be. And because I think about it a lot, when I'm an old man, these kids are going to be who's taking care of me,
Yeah.
like, so I want them to be in good gear. And it is like so interesting to me too, like how, like they don't just think outside the box. Like there is no box. Like they think in so many different creative directions that I could never conceive of. And I think it's so refreshing. And the fact that they want to have fun.
Yeah, and everything is new and fresh to them. They have a completely different viewpoint on the world than we do when we've been around for 3 to 4 decades or however long you've been around for. And I think that, yes, you get wisdom and you get perspective as you get older, but I think you also lose that sort of magical lens of appreciating just the miracle of day-to-day life, I guess, and that's an important thing. And I think, especially now having a baby, I'm starting to get that again. I almost get a second chance at that because I get to see the world through his eyes, and his everything is new to him, and it's amazing. And that's how it is for young kids, right? So
Yeah, it makes things that seemed maybe mundane, exciting again.
yeah,
I was watching a little boy yesterday that was going around trying to find the biggest leaves, and so he'd find a big leaf and like run over and like show his parents and like be so excited about it, and like it's just like so fun to watch, just like the joy, and it is kind of cool like that. He was finding some really big leaves, and so it's just really so refreshing.
yeah, yeah. No, it's one of those things that sort of reminds you to appreciate even the small things. So yeah.
Okay, last question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any final tips for our budding superheroes?
Yeah, yeah, I do, I suppose. I think it's just be your authentic, true self. One of the things that I wish I'd figured out when I was younger is it's okay if you're unusual or you see things differently or you're, what some people might think are a little weird. I think I spent a lot of my time when I was younger trying to conform to some concept of coolness or like whatever. And you're going to be far more happier, and you're going to enjoy life more if you don't worry about so much about what other people think about you, and you worry about what makes you happy. As long as you are a kind and empathetic person, a compassionate person, just be you and find what you love and do it. And don't worry about what anybody else says, especially if they are telling you you're not going to be successful or what you do isn't important enough or anything. Do what makes you happy and just be your as true to yourself as you possibly can be. Even if that's a weird person. I always say embrace the weird. Weird is good.
I think that is such an important point, and being able to be yourself is so freeing. And I agree so much. Like with you can really do pretty much anything that you want. Like there's really nothing off the table, and there's so many examples of people telling other people that they're not good at something, and or they'll never be successful. And it turns out that that person's actually really good at it. And so the actual previous episode is with an artist who's painting murals all over the place, and even did some for the Gators. And he had an art teacher that told him like not to paint. And you know what I mean? It is, thank goodness he didn't listen. I guess that's good not to be a good listener. But I guess he was a good listener to himself, to his inner being. And so I think, yeah, I guess that's another thing too, is being authentic, like with yourself, like with listening to yourself and being honest with yourself. Because that's one thing that I'm working on, on myself a lot, and which has helped a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not always easy. Social pressure is real. But I think as long as you're trying, as long as you're not hurting anybody and you're being kind and compassionate to other folks, do you. Do you as best you can. So
I love it. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute treat and pleasure to have you on and get to hear your story and all your amazing insight. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm flattered and humbled that you asked me. So cheers.
Absolutely. You're an incredible human being, and I'm so excited to be able to showcase that to the world.
You got me blushing. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Mike.
Absolutely. And audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a great day and a great every day, and join us again. And thank you so much for joining us today. Take care.